What's up, guys? Dr. Mo here, digital nomad physician at digitalnomadphysician.com. So, this video is going to be a little bit about all the great things, all the positive things that we have in our current healthcare system that we as physicians can take advantage of. The reason I thought about this is because when I'm reading a book by Charles Darwin in the 1830s, written in the 1830s, and it's incredible to think about what this guy saw and like the state of humanity, the state of the population and like what people did to each other, the state of political stuff that was going on at the time, how people killed each other and tortured each other and like the things they thought. And the first thing it made me realize is like, we have it so good, right? I mean, 2022, the majority of us were able to digest this sort of content. We have it so good. There are a lot of people who are still suffering in very similar ways. And so I would feel ungrateful if I didn't appreciate some of these things and started thinking about it a little bit more and taking advantage of it, right? Taking advantage of the opportunities that I have in healthcare as a physician in 2022. So starting off, I think probably the first thing on my list is I'm able to work part-time, right? There are so many professions in which you can't work part-time. Whether you're a surgeon, whether you are a hospital administrator, whether you're a family medicine doctor, internal medicine doctor, pediatrician, you can work part-time. As an obstetrician, you can be part of a group and cover certain calls for people. There are many specialists in GI and rheumatology who don't have their own practices, who basically just take call for different groups, different hospital systems. So for example, they'll take an overnight call or they'll take an occasional weekend call. And that can sometimes be enough to earn the kind of money you need to be able to take time off, take a break, get some space in medicine. Sometimes we just feel overwhelmed. We have personal issues. We're taking care of elderly parents. We're going through a divorce. Our kids are all fucked up. Whatever it is, you just need a break. You just need to get away. You just need to be able to have some space. And part-time in medicine is something that, that didn't used to exist. It used to be you either had your own private practice and you were just bombarded. You couldn't take any time off, or you were part of a hospital system and the only way they would hire you is if you went in full time. And then we started getting part-time, and then we started getting locum tenens, and then we started getting per diem jobs. And so I think that's incredible. The flexibility of me being able to pick up shifts whenever I want, even last minute, so that I can have a bunch of weeks off and then be like, oh, I need to start making some money. I'm going to pick up some shifts and then I'm going to take some time off. That's incredible. Taking time off is kind of part of that as well. I think in medicine these days, you are able to take many months off in a row. Sometimes your employer, when you do get hired back on, is going to ask you like, hey, what were you doing? Because we're not okay with you having more than 30 days off from clinical medicine. But there's a lot of things that you can do. You can do CMEs, you can do volunteer work, you can do other stuff to at least show and demonstrate that you stayed up to date on your clinical stuff. Virtual medicine, that's the next one, right? I mean, we can do virtual anything these days. We can do telemedicine. I can go and work for Teladoc, MD Live, Doctor on Demand, American Well, Nurx, Roman, so many different telemedicine companies that will hire me to just do a little bit of telemedicine for them. The income is good, $20-some per patient visit. Doesn't sound like much, but the visits are short. The patients aren't complicated. You're going to do more than 4 patients an hour. You're going to probably do 7 patients an hour. And so the money adds up and the income is good. And what's wonderful about it is you have the flexibility of either being at home or working from some office setting that you choose, or being able to travel in the US. Now, I know I also talk a lot about how complicated it is and how difficult it is because many insurance companies may require you to have a license. Many states may require you to have a license in their state when you're traveling and doing telemedicine, even though you're not seeing those patients in that state. But at least we can. And like many of us in the future, if we do become licensed by multiple different states, that gives us a lot of opportunities and flexibility. So I really want to push this telemedicine part and like just kind of push it in my own brain as well. Like, hey, look, This didn't used to exist as ubiquitously as it is now. Like you couldn't just do asynchronous telemedicine, do really, really niche telemedicine stuff like gastrointestinal stuff, male pattern balding, and like erectile dysfunction, and like birth control medication. I mean, that's incredible. Like these are the things that we're now able to do that we didn't have these opportunities in the past. So that's what I love about healthcare. The fact that healthcare is evolving in a way that it is trying to offer more access to patients, but it is also helping a physician like myself who maybe doesn't want to be in an urgent care setting from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I'm able to do it from my home. And I love that. I've done multiple telemedicine practices. I've worked for multiple telemedicine practices and made really good money over the years, ever since 2016. The other thing is, as a physician, I can do consulting. So obviously, a lot of the stuff on my website at digitalnomadphysician.com is about consulting in healthcare consulting, clinical consulting, brand consulting for telemedicine healthcare startups, which are trying to figure out like how to go after a certain niche population. I just recently had a great call with somebody who is targeting the elderly people and decreasing their risk of falls in the Parkinson disease population. I mean, like it is as niche gets. And in fact, he hasn't really figured out how to build something more clinical. He wants to add something clinical to it. Right now, he's using a lot more physical therapists and dietitians and nutritionists and gait specialists to work with these patients, but he wants to bring in something more clinical. And so that's kind of some of the clinical consulting that I do for these companies. And you can imagine if you are a neurologist, you're the perfect person for this kind of job. You reach out to a company like this on LinkedIn, on whatever website you find them, and you say, hey, look, I love what you're doing. I think it's really interesting. I'm curious what else you're thinking about doing. Maybe I can, maybe you can bring me in and I can do some consulting for you and come up with some better ways to improve the service that you're already providing. And so I think consulting gives me the flexibility, first of all, to live anywhere in the world. And I literally just use the knowledge that I have acquired as a physician for different entities, whether it's an insurance company, a utilization management review company, an attorney or a healthcare startup or a large healthcare company. I can be a consultant for them. I can share my information and help them improve their bottom line, I suppose. And I think, I have a lot of internists who reach out to me. They're burnt out. Many oncologists, many gastroenterologists. And I get it. You guys are burnt out and you don't know what to do with your career. You need the income. You want the income, but you're really burnt out. And it seems at first that the options are limited. But think about it. Let's say you're an internal medicine doctor who is a rheumatologist, right? Or you're an oncologist, and you just don't want to do that anymore. What can you do? Well, first of all, you can go work in an urgent care. And you might think like, oh no, urgent cares only hire family medicine doctors and ER doctors. No. Urgent care doctors prefer to hire family medicine doctors and ER doctors, but sometimes they don't have a choice because they just have so many patients and not enough physicians who are willing to work for them. So you can definitely find a job there, and you can still treat a lot. Pediatric patient population in an urgent care is maybe 20%. And so on those days, they can send them to different places when you work. Or maybe there's a PA there or NP who can cross-cover. You can go become a hospitalist, right? You might not feel comfortable. It's been a while and you need to brush up on that information, but you can take immersion courses and CMEs to help you brush up on that and become really confident and start doing some hospitalist work. Maybe you are working in a hospital and you're trying to get the hell out. You can find a clinic. You can just be a regular old internist for a primary care clinic, cover them for a day or two. You can find them through per diem clinics. Tracy Zweig in California, tracysweig.com, an incredible company. They really care about their physicians. They place you in really good positions. And there's so many locum tenens companies like that out there. So that's kind of like a whole hospitalist, outpatient, inpatient world that I think we can just easily navigate between. If you don't know how to do it, reach out to somebody to teach you. That's kind of what I do with my career consulting. I talk to people who want to go from one field into another. They don't know how to do it. They need their hands held. They need somebody who can convince them that they can do it, push them, hold them accountable, and they achieve what they set out to achieve. Other job options for physicians that I think are becoming much more prevalent and very interesting is the labeling data. So I've talked about my data science course that I took with Google. I've talked about all the different data science stuff that I've done over the years, from creating ontological structures to working with machine learning engineers to create certain prediction algorithms. I'm fascinated by that stuff, and it is, I think, really interesting for me as from a nerdy perspective, but I also know what it can do for patients. So there's a lot of companies right now hiring physicians to label data. So imagine you listen to a big, long conversation between a patient and a doctor. Well, you need a clinician, somebody who's experienced, to label each word, each conversation, each phrase, each whatever, and teach the machine learning algorithm, teach the software, as one might say, what this really means, what it really indicates. Why did the doctor ask this question, right? The medical decision making behind why the question was asked. This is called data labeling, and you need somebody who's experienced. Now, a lot of companies right now are hiring RNs and medical students and residents and other people to do it, but unfortunately, you can only create that good of a product when the limiting factor is the knowledge of the people who are labeling that data. So eventually they're going to have to switch to physicians. Many companies have already switched to physicians. Even when they're trying to use physicians from abroad, I'm in contact with a company who's using physicians from India to label their data. Unfortunately, they're hitting roadblock after roadblock, and they've spent a lot of money building the system out and making it so that it is only done by physicians in India. And unfortunately, medicine in India is not the same as medicine in the US. So in the end, the companies are going to have to cough up the dough and pay the physicians to label the data. But I think data labeling jobs, even though they're repetitive, they're kind of interesting. I've done a lot of it, and it can be kind of fun to sit there and like click, especially if you have a really good software that you can interact with. And there's many different things from photos to images to conversations to you name it. You can sit there and label data. There are a few companies that you can get hired by. I would just look for data labeling jobs, clinical data labeling jobs, and you should be able to find some stuff. I'll probably create some videos on that in the future. Other things that I'll say that is incredible about healthcare right now for physicians is that we're able to practice medicine with many different fee structures. I can charge you cash. I can say, hey, look, this is what I do, right? So my clinical brand that I do, I only take cash. So you got to pay me $500 per month to be my patient. Simple. How many patients do I need? Do the math, right? How many patients do I need to live in Spain or to live in Portland, Oregon, or somewhere else where the cost of living is really low? How many patients do I need to see a month? Do I need to have on my panel to live a very, very comfortable life financially? So that's the kind of payment model. There's this like monthly payment model. There's a cash model where you pay me per consult. For example, you're a patient with cancer and you need a second opinion. You want to know like, hey, what is the best option for this? $2,000. I charge you $2,000 for a second opinion on your oncological issue, and I will suggest, and I will do plenty of research, talk to many experts, and I will give you back a reply. I can do the whole direct primary care model, the direct care model, basically where you charge somebody a small fee every month and then you have a smaller patient panel. It's similar to what I do, but I keep mine fairly non-mainstream, meaning that I am more of your advisor and I'm less your physician. So we don't build like a patient-doctor relationship because I don't want to go there. I don't want the responsibility of it. I can make the money, I can give you all the advice you need. You might be traveling all over the world and you still need somebody like a physician, an expert to review stuff for you, to discuss your medications. But I'm not diagnosing you, I'm not ordering medications for you. So that's different from direct care practices. Direct care, where you're dealing with the patient directly without the insurance company. It's wonderful because it's a smaller patient panel. The patients are usually more suited to your practice. Next to this, you got the whole classic insurance model. You can create the kind of insurance-based practice where you're seeing a high churn of patients, or you're seeing patients who, the insurance company reimburses very well, very, very well, and then you can keep your practice that clean. You can You're a rheumatologist, you can get rid of all your fibromyalgia patients. You're a GI doctor, you can get rid of all your IBS patients. You're a family medicine doctor, you can get rid of all your diabetic patients. You can say, I will take patients only with these conditions. And you can still take insurance. You can still negotiate insurance contracts for such groups of patients. And that's something that we didn't have before, right? Cash, insurance, direct care, and this, concierge medicine. So all of these are options that we have available to us. We can do it part-time, we can do it full-time, we can do it in our own practice. Closely tied into that, I put another point here for myself, is that we are no longer the only ones who have to be responsible for the patient. We have health coaches that we can hire medical assistants and train them to reach out to patients. We can have registered nurses in our practices. We can have nurse practitioners and physician assistants who run the day-to-day stuff for our practice. I have a really good friend who has a private practice as an internist, and she has 2 PAs doing pretty much all of the work. She goes in every single day. She goes into the clinic and she does a really good job of seeing patients. She sees a lot more than her PAs can do, but she loves her PAs and they have a great relationship. And all of the pre-authorization, complicated stuff falls on the PAs, and she just sort of sees the other patients, maybe the initial consults that are more complicated. So, that's something that not too long ago wasn't a great option because PAs and NPs weren't getting the same reimbursement. But now if you have an insurance practice, you can have a PA and an NP billed very similar to a physician. So that's great. Other things. In the past, it was difficult to figure out how to be a doctor in another country. How do I become a doctor in Denmark? How do I become a doctor in Germany, in Spain? Now, that information is a lot more available. I can go online, I can figure out how to get my medical license, how to go through the homologation process in Spain, and then get my C1 certificate for the language and open up a practice and see patients. That was something that was really difficult to figure out back in the day. And now with the use of the internet and much more mainstream processes and digitization of a lot of that stuff, it's really easy. So you can go and stop practicing in the US, you can go practice somewhere else for a few years and then come back. You can go to Australia, New Zealand, you can go to Canada, UK. So it's incredible. Now, there are some things that you have to do, absolutely, especially if you're a specialist. It's more complicated and you may have to redo residencies, you may have to redo exams, but it is possible. And if that's something you're interested in, it's something that you can do. The last thing, it's sort of, for me, it's this entrepreneurial side of medicine. What I mean by that is you can create a health brand that is purely coaching and you can make a lot of money. There are physicians on YouTube, on Instagram they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month being nothing more than a coach, being nothing more than the digester of information for these patients. It's kind of like holding them accountable in some ways, but not working with them one-on-one, just selling advertisement on their brand, but giving out really, really good information. Now, is it always the perfect information? No, none of us is perfect. Listen, this stuff I say here, half of it is good, half of it is bad, 20% of it is completely wrong, 80% of it is fairly correct. We're never going to be perfect, but each of us has this opportunity to create their own brand and kind of go this entrepreneurial route to make really good money in medicine that, again, was really difficult to do back in the day. You can work in a clinic, save all your money, invest in real estate, invest in stocks, invest in crypto, invest in whatever you want. And that's another way to be entrepreneurial. That's another way for you to kind of maybe create an exit strategy out of medicine where you can work really hard, save and invest your money aggressively, and then slowly kind of transition out or transition into something different. That's not something that was available to us not that long ago because investments weren't that easy to figure out. Now they are. And the whole investment thing is on. I've blown that up on my website because I'm just so passionate about investing. I do think there's a lot of good opportunities in that. So you can read up more at digitalnomadphysician.com. So that's it. I just want to say I'm very grateful, even though I complain a lot about medicine and healthcare and stuff like that. I do complain because a part of me also wants to hold medicine to a higher standard and maybe hold myself up to a higher standard. I don't know what it is, but I do want to be grateful today. Today, what is it? February 22nd, 23rd of 2022, that There are incredible things in healthcare right now. There are wonderful opportunities. Maybe you're not ready to take those on right now. Maybe you're like, fuck that, I don't want to open my own practice. Screw that, I don't want to go be a hospitalist. Screw that, I don't want to do telemedicine. That's fine. Take a break. Do something else. Do something different. Cash out a 401k and live off of that in Guatemala, in Guadalajara, in somewhere, just take a break and then rethink what you might be interested in. But at least know that there are options. There are incredible career coaches. There are incredible websites that you can go and find all this information about, like, what do you really want to pursue? What is it that you're really interested in? So hope this is helpful. You can email me, drmo@digitalnomadphysician.com, or check out the website. Take care.